The West became a source of entertainment, even while events were still happening. Buffalo Bill's Wild West show opened in 1883 in Omaha, Nebraska, and became a worldwide sensation for 30 years. Many say its success contributed to the development of Westerns in film. When and where was the first Western movie made? Don't tax yourself. It's very unlikely you're going to know the answer. It's England, 1899, entitled Kidnapping by Indians. The second was where it should be, the United States, in 1903, The Great Train Robbery, in a 10-minute drama featuring a train robbery, a posse pursuit, and a shootout, establishing the critical elements to this day, and it was shot in New Jersey. For the next 60 years, 1/3 of all films shot in the United States were Westerns. Basically, they haven't stopped ever since. Silent film Westerns were immensely popular, and literally hundreds were made. Popularity waned during the late 20s and the Depression years, until 1939, with John Ford's Stagecoach, shot here in Monument Valley and nominated for 7 Academy Awards. In the early 60s, feature film Westerns fell out of favor until the Dollar Trilogy, Sergio Leone's 1964, 65, and 66, caught America Film Studios off guard with their audience popularity. Now, the success of Yellowstone and its spin-offs has rekindled it again. And why not? The Western genre contains all the elements we humans love: conquest, codes of honor, revenge, frontier justice, retribution, morality tales, duels on Main Street, the mysterious wanderer, the collapse of social order. What's not to like? It's strange how, in 1952, the communist witch hunt and blacklisting of the film industry played a role, if not impetus, in producing one of the great Westerns of all times. In 1989, the U.S. National Film Registry selected High Noon as one of its first 25 films for preservation. It amassed 7 Academy Award nominations and 4 Oscars, including Gary Cooper. The story centers on how all his friends and townspeople abandon him to face the killers alone. A thinly veiled metaphor for efforts to uncover communist sympathizers in Hollywood. The screenwriter, Carl Foreman, was eventually blacklisted and moved to England. A number of actors were first offered the role. John Wayne, who viewed and said so, the whole thing is un-American. Gregory Peck, who later said it was the biggest mistake of his career. And Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, and Charlton Heston. It was the favorite film of President Eisenhower, Reagan, and Clinton, who showed it 17 times in the White House. Even the Soviet Union chimed in, criticizing it's a glorification of the individual. How many Western stars can be identified just by standing still in silhouette? Come on, think. That is John Wayne in the 1965 film The Searchers. This film has been elected Best Western Ever Made and the 12th best film in the list of top 100 movies. The film was inspired by the true story of the most powerful Comanche chief, Quanah Parker, whose mother was white and kidnapped as a child, father a Comanche chief. The classic Western theme, gunfighter tries to escape his violent past and settle into a quiet Wyoming town, only to get involved in a conflict between a homestead family and a cattle interests. He's forced to act. Released in 1953, Shane, starring Alan Ladd, was a big hit and nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Strangely, the 3 principal actors were all overlooked, and From Here to Eternity won most of the categories for which Cheyenne was nominated. Its closing scene with Little Joey is among the best in filmmaking. Here are 2 Academy Awards, one for the actor, one for the horse. Shot in 28 days, Cat Ballou, on a low budget, was somewhat zany, comedic, and a big hit. Kid Shalene taught Lee Marvin a lesson. He took a hard look at himself and his drinking. If you're going to make only one Western movie, make it a big one. The 33-year-old actor played a 121-year-old Jack Crabb, being interviewed, telling his life's story, which was basically the story of the entire West. And he was there. So, who? Dustin Hoffman. In what? Little Big Man, released in 1970. To prepare for Jack Crabb, Hoffman would scream for an hour to make his voice sound like a 120-year-old man. Well, we know who this is, but not really for Western movies. It was called Law and Order, released in 1953. The film's description was long and complicated. I was lost halfway through, and I suspect so was the audience.
I'm kind of looking forward to it, Kurt.
It's probably easier to be a president than to make a great Western. A sweeping epic of Western expansion, this was released on widescreen in 1962. It had 3 directors responsible for different elements of the saga. Depicting the buffalo hunter Jethro Stewart was Henry Fonda. Hollywood A-listers dominated the cast of How the West Was Won. The cinematography celebrates the beauty of the country. This great character actor appeared in over a 65-year career in more than 90 films, yet is best remembered for 3 Westerns that he made. His role as Tuco, the Mexican bandit, and Blondie, his distrusting partner, contributed to the single most remembered Western of all times. A hint, his autobiography, written in 2010, is entitled The Good, the Bad, and Me. It's Eli Wallach, a character actor that excelled above all others. Few stories of the West are as mythical and still real as the gunfight at the OK Corral. Tombstone was released in 1993. Universally praised was Val Kilmer's role as Doc Holliday. Reviews over the years always say he should have received an Oscar nomination for supporting actor. Behind the scenes, however, was chaotic. It's often been said Kurt Russell's role actually functioned as the director, but he did not want to take credit. Many lines are memorable, but the most mysterious, with widely varying interpretations, was Doc's response to a challenge.
Don't any of you have the guts to fight for blood? I'm your huckleberry.
It meant, I'm your man, I'm the guy. A Western icon plays a desperate pig farmer trying to feed his children after a former life of killing and pillaging. Clint Eastwood's epic film, Unforgiven, was released in 1992. Offered a chance for reward, Will Money reluctantly agrees to kill a cowboy who has disfigured the face of a local prostitute. The sheriff, Little Bill, vows to stop reward hunters. The final confrontation has Will sticking a shotgun in Bill's face, and another iconic film quote.
You'd be William Money out of Missouri. Killer women and children.
I've killed women and children. Killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another. And I'm here to kill you, Little Bill.
Words that earned 4 Oscars. Arguably the coolest cowboy outfit, and they had to go to Australia to pull it off. Tom Selleck played Matthew Quigley in an unfamiliar land in the 1990 film Quigley Down Under. A great story centers around a very scary weapon, a Shiloh Sharps rifle with Quigley's own load. Selleck said the role was a bit daunting. It did well, but released the same month as Dances with Wolves didn't help. This has been a look at a few big screen westerns. It barely scratches the surface. With the start of TV in the late 40s began the explosion of western series. The peak was 1959. The top 4 shows on TV were westerns. Now, for some quick images to jog your memory. The first western series was Hopalong Cassidy with William Boyd, 1949 to 1952. The Lone Ranger with Clayton Moore came out later that year, running 1949 to 1957. The Singing Cowboys began with Gene Autry in 1950 to 56 and Roy Rogers from 1951 to 57, called horse operas. The 1950s saw The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp with Hugh O'Brien, 1955 to 61, and Cheyenne with Clint Walker, 1955 to 63. In 1958 came The Rifleman with Chuck Connors, who actually did play professional baseball and basketball, as well as Wanted Dead or Alive in 1958 to 61, the stepping stone for Steve McQueen. Bonanza was introduced in 1959 and went on to become the second longest running TV Western from 1959 to 73. The start of another legend, Rawhide with Clint Eastwood and the great name Rowdy Yates, 1959 to 66. Mr. Cool, James Garner, whose film brother once said, "My brother is a faster draw than me, and he's the second slowest draw in the West." Maverick relied on charm. He brought an intellect, comedic element to the Western. We saw Fess Parker actually display a bit of typecasting, playing both Davy Crockett in 54 and Daniel Boone in 64. Lonesome Dove brought a new level of sophistication and production values with Tommy Lee Jones and Robert Duvall, airing in 1989 and earning 7 Emmys. For a different take on Heroes of the West was Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, with Jane Seymour, 1993 to 98. The short-lived 2004 to 6 series Deadwood was an accurate portrayal of a violent western town in the mid-1870s. The narrative was both profane and poetic. It explored everything, including a nasty urinary infection. It was the best of TV while it lasted. We can't overlook the tremendous popularity and influence of Yellowstone with Kevin Costner, which began in 2018 and has amassed several awards. So, what TV Western lasted the longest? Gunsmoke. 70 years and still going. 3 years on radio, 1951 to 53. 20 years on TV, 1955 to 75. And reruns going on strong till right now. The continuing presence has always been the stalwart hero, Matt Dillon. I think a big draw to viewership was always, will Kitty ever marry Matt? She tried everything. Yes, that's Kitty in the bathtub. Westerns are so ingrained in entertainment that in the 1980s, when Gene Roddenberry was peddling Star Trek, he called it the wagon train of the stars. A significant change in the way Native Americans were portrayed in art is examined in episode 20. This began in Taos, New Mexico, and the Taos Pueblo. It began attracting major artists, all because of a broken wagon wheel. It's a great story. Don't miss the final episode in our series.